Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly webinar. This is Patrick Halstead at Qdabra, and I want to wish everyone a happy new year. Hope you guys are warm. I know that we've got some major blizzard conditions going on the East Coast today, and I want to wish you all a safe journey home today if you're at work. Also, be careful. I'll be actually on the East Coast Sunday, and I'm not looking forward to the cold. I'm in Seattle right now. Today I have with me Mel and Mel Clemente, one of our leading forms designers, and Don Lombatin, who is going to show you some flow work. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that you can hear me. Can you raise your hand if my audio is coming through? And we thank you very much, Evan and Mark, and great to see all the friendly and familiar faces out there today, or emails, or names. Today's webinar, we're talking about, we got a simple form to show you. It's actually pretty cool. It's a form to enable you to contact your customers and have them schedule appointments. So this actually, the story behind this form is that in Kirkland, Washington, so I live near Seattle, so I'm right across the lake in Seattle. And in Kirkland, the city of Kirkland requires that anybody with a sprinkler system has to get a backflow prevention check once a year to make sure that the valve that controls the flow of water, the sprinkler system has to flush out the water in the sprinkler system to the drain, right, the sewer system. And there's a valve that protects the water from going the opposite direction, right? So if there's a build up in the drain, you don't want that sewage water coming into your local water supply. And they have a test every year that they require the residents to run. And it's kind of a hassle because you have to call up somebody, they have to come out, you got to pay them $100, and you got to check your backflow prevention valve. So this guy came out to my house literally a week ago and did a great job. And he's talking to me about his business. He's a small business owner. And I'm, it's like we got this contact, want to make sure I can schedule my appointments. And I had this idea, well, we'll create a little form based on his requirements. And I want to do a quick shout out to Joshua at Van Quathen there, who may be joining us later or watching this in video format. So basically, we have today a contact us page. For those of you who have been to our Qdabra.com website, underneath About, we have this contact us page, and this is how we do it today. It's pretty simple. We have people fill out a form and send email, and then we respond to the email. So we'd like to improve this process to make it more automatic. And specifically, what we want to do is we want to create a form in 365 or in SharePoint that engages our customers just like that web page, but allows for easy modifications. So, Joshua may not be a form designer, expert like Mel. So we want to provide a form that he can use and modify as his business changes to, add a field here, maybe change the color, change the logo, that kind of thing. We want to integrate it with his calendar. So if he's using SharePoint, we want to integrate it with the SharePoint calendar. We want to automate notifications going out to the customer. And that's really what the webinar demo is about today. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to contact someone, and let's show you this form. Actually, let's just do the demo first. So we actually we're going to have you fill out this form as well. So I'm going to copy this link because this is obviously it's a great demo for you to fill it out. I'm going to copy it into chat. Now before you fill it out, just watch me fill it out first because it may and this is coming off. So we have a calendar in SharePoint, right? And we have a form, and this is the form that I just opened. And you can see that Mel's going to talk more in a second about this, but this form will work on your mobile as well. In fact, if you can copy this link to your email and send it to yourself, then you can actually open this up on your phone. And I encourage you to do that because the form will conform. I'm sorry, the form will conform. Does that make sense? The form will conform to layout, which is kind of nice. This is one of the really cool features in forms here. So this is an out-of-the-box info path form being rendered in the Forms Your app in 365. And we're going to fill this form out. So I want product support. My name is Patrick, and I do not need immediate assistance. Actually, let's say I do need immediate assistance. And I'm the form bro, right? I'm just kidding. I'm the demo monkey. We'll just fill this out. We got to make sure the email is in here because otherwise you won't get the confirmation. And we used to have email and confirmation. We tried to simplify this a little bit. And if you guys want to call me, there's my phone number. Need help with the cold weather, whatever. Okay, and then if I set the appointment, what it's going to do is it's going to query that calendar, and Mel's going to talk more about what this is doing in a second. And it's going to say, look, you know, it's already Thursday, so we're going to schedule it for Friday. So these slots before are all, we've called these things slot 1 through 4. Obviously, we should probably pick a better name, but we're scheduling this out for, you know, for a day. Let's say we pick Friday the 4th. I click on this button, it highlights it to show I've selected it. You can see that there's the initials of the other people who have reserved a slot for Friday. And if this was Wednesday, you see Thursday as well. So it's only showing you the day ahead. It's because it's urgent. If I had not chosen urgent, it would show next week. And it automatically sets the start time and the end time based on those configuration. Now this is also, Mel's going to show where she's pulling the slot information from. So it's all customizable. I'm going to make this a request from Mel, click submit, and we're done. Okay, so once I've done that now, if I go back to my calendar, you can see here that we have these 2 appointments previously showing up for Friday, John Smith and Dawn. If I refresh the screen, we should see my appointment come in here, and there it is. I'm at 6 a.m. I guess now. I guess the times are kind of intermingled there, so there's a bug there with the ordering of the time of the slots, because I thought that I picked the last one. But no worries. You can see that it got added to the calendar. And Mel, I'd like to, before we switch to you, let me just go over quickly what I demoed. So we're really talking about a minimal form because people are in a hurry. They don't want to fill something out that's long. It should really take a minute or less to fill it out. It should look good on your phone. It should look good on your laptop, your tablet, whatever. We need to make sure we understand what the urgency is of the need. If the customer has an immediate need, we want to make sure we respond as soon as possible. And we also want to set expectation if it's not urgent. So, you know, next week, for example. We want to allow them to see our availability and book an appointment and get confirmation email back. So, Mel, why don't you quickly show the viewers what you did with this form. Show them the form in the designer and walk through it, and then maybe demo it in the phone, and I'll make you presenter.
Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yep. So hello everybody, this is Mel, and I'm excited to show you the magic behind this cool trick here. So I've opened the form in the designer, and as you can see, we're only showing on the view just a couple fields. Just like Patrick said, we want to make the form filling experience of the users just fast and easy, I guess. So yep, these are the fields that you're seeing there initially, and this is the part where it shows the calendar. So this, the data that shows in the calendar there, that just as what you've seen with on Patrick's demo, is coming from a SharePoint, from 3 different SharePoint lists actually. The list of support person, we do have a separate resources list that shows those names. So this is coming from a secondary data source, and you can hard code that or use a secondary like an XML file or what have you, but that's coming from a separate list. Then we do have a support time slots that is indeed customizable. So if you do want to provide more time slots for customers want to reach you, right? For now, we're just providing 4 slots there, and we're specifying the slot name, and you can change that to whatever you like in the start time and the end times as well. And so then the other list called support slots just has items for all the weekdays. So because I have 4 slots, I'm gonna have to have 4 slots for each day. So day 1 is Monday, day 2 is Tuesday until Friday. So we have a total of 20 items in this list then. And so what we're doing in the form here is we have here in the form logic XML data source. This is a centralized logic technique. We get those slots and copy them over into our form's main data source. Okay, so the tricks here are, so we first want to find out what's the start date of our week. So we use that by using the qrules command called get weekday. We want to get the date of the Monday for that week, right? And then we set this secondary data source field called Monday date with the result of that query right there. And then if it's not, this happens if it's, regardless if it's urgent or not, but if it's not urgent, then we show the next week and we just add days to that previously set field, add 7 days to it to show the next week. And so then we query those 2 lists, the list that I showed you, slots and then the time slots. Then we copy to main, and we're using, yet again, qrules commands here. First, we delete whatever's already in the main data source. Then we set this helper field in the secondary data source called inform logic called count to the count of the items that we queried in the slots list, which is 20. So we get 20 rows back, and then we insert those 20 rows into our main data source using this command. And to those of you who are familiar with qrules may have already seen these commands. And then once we insert rows into into our main data source, which is this guy here, rules will fire then. So here's our copy logic going on. If our count is greater than 0, meaning there is data, then it's gonna keep looping through until it reaches the 20 rows there. Okay, so we set just a day. We basically set these guys right here with the value that we retrieve from those lists, like right here. Slots, we set that to the day here. Okay, and we determine that by using the count, the form logic count number, our counter basically. Okay, so then it goes on with slot number, start time, end time, the date, and then here's another helper field called trigger. So before it finishes its job for that current row, we set this trigger node into a value so that its rules fire as well. So here we get the calendar entries. So what's basically happening here is I'm checking all the slots here, and then in each slot, I check the calendar if there's an already booked appointment for that slot. And so that's how we see, if I can show here, maybe. That's how we populate our mini calendar down here with the slots. And I think I'm gonna have to refresh this. It's been open. I'm actually gonna show you the mobile version instead. So here's the screen. I'm gonna use a plugin that simulates opening on a different browser. I'm going to use the iPhone's browser, and it's going to refresh, and I'm going to try that again. So let's show you non-urgent items this time, because Patrick showed urgent items. So if I click on that without that checked, and now I'll see all the available or the non-available appointments. As you can see, compare that to the calendar to the left here, they should match. So that's how we determine which ones are free, which ones are not, by querying those two lists, the slot list and the appointment calendar list.
I like how it conforms the button size even to the mobile. That's pretty cool. How did you do that, Mel?
Yeah, it's all using custom style sheet file, CSS, and we're using qrules to load that resource file.
And for those of you who are also impressed by that technique, Mel did a nice webinar. I want to say it was earlier last year, like almost a year ago, where you talked about these different techniques. I think we also did a webinar back in September with where Mel showed how to make your forms, you know, automatically scrunch or size up depending on the size of the resolution of your screen. That's great, Mel.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's see. Yeah, so go back to the form and show them how you're combining these two lists, the 20 slots plus the ones that are already taken. And how do you control the formatting on those buttons?
Yeah, so the formatting, then we're basically displaying the repeating table multiple times. So like we only have a flat repeating data structure there, and so on Monday I just want to show everything Monday. So we have a conditional formatting here. If day one is not equal to, if day is not equal to 1, then hide it. So I only want to show day 1 here, day 2, day 3, and so on. So the shading happens in the buttons.
So sorry, so let me just interrupt you for a second, because this is really cool. For some of you who are listening, you don't have to have one repeating table in your view for the repeating group in your fields pane. You can have multiple ones, and you see that little blue hover icon over the top right of the button. That's indicating that it's a duplicate, but that's okay. And this is a common technique when you want to filter things and show things in different areas of your form based on a filter. In this case, the filter is the day. That's very cool, Mel. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Yep. So then the shading, formatting in those shaded buttons happen in the buttons themselves. So we show gray or show them appear disabled if it's past the current date or the date today, right? And then selected just changes the color to yellow. If it's already booked, we show them as red. And if it's available, we show them as green. Then once they're clicked, we set the appointment date and time to whichever's selected by the user. And we mark it as selected so that it appears yellow. That's our toggle for that. And then we set everything else to not selected, so then I can, keep changing. Let me go back, try and go back here.
Oh, you
so
did
I can
that.
select
so
this.
Actually change it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's very cool. I was just going to ask you about that.
Let me show a quick demo of it.
Have your name entered so you get the initials going.
Yeah, there you go. So I can, pick different slots here, and I can even, if I change my mind, I want an immediate assistance. It's just gonna refresh, requery, show me these slots. So the beers.
Your day has shifted into the nighttime there.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
You're in Manila. You're in Manila, so
yeah, it's Saturday now. That's right.
But I guess one question for you there is if they select one, go back to the form again. If they select one, can they click on it to deselect it? They have to select something else, right?
That's right. Yeah, they will have to select something else.
Yeah, but or they can just cancel, right? They can just say, "Well, forget it. I don't want to do it." Yeah. Okay, this is great. I'm gonna go back to my screen for a second, and I'm gonna. I think I can do this. And so a few more slides. I want to reiterate what we're doing here. Once again, we're trying to create a simple form that allows your customers to set a time to talk to you or to have you come out to their site to do something like check the backflow prevention valve if you're a plumber. So the key thing about this form is that, as Mel mentioned, it's integrating with SharePoint to pull lists. And the cool thing about that is it allows you to customize where those slots are. So let's say maybe you have, we have 4 slots of support per day. So for us, we want to book out 20 support slots per week, and we want to kind of limit it to that. We haven't seen the demand exceed that, so that's a good size for us, being a small team. You might have a different need. You might have many more support slots. For the purpose of this demo, we assumed that the slots were non-overlapping, and we also assumed that that we are going to do it based on all the weeks were the same. So in other words, the slots don't change based on the week. The weeks always have a certain number of slots, 20 slots, right? Now you can change that. You can change how many slots you have in your week. You can change your resources, and those are the customization options you have when you get this form from us after you fill out the quick survey today. We'll send you the package. Mel, we need to make sure we download the lists so they can actually create the lists on their site. And so then, as Mel was showing, it queries this calendar. So there's actually 4 lists. There's resources, there's the slots, and then there's the actual the week slots. So and we probably could have combined the second and third ones into one, but we left it as 2 right now. And then the 4th list is the calendar. So that's where it's querying the previous bookings. So and that's also where it's submitting back. So once the form gets all that information, then it can limit it, the selection like you saw. So it disables, is using formatting rules, is disabling the slot if it's past, it's before today. Mel just hit midnight, so she didn't see Friday. And then it's also showing, highlighting what's already booked, and it's showing them when they click on it that they have tentatively selected it. And then when they submit it, if they go back in the form, they'll see their initials. Kind of like, you know, if you're at the checkout counter for an airline flight and you're looking to get an upgrade, right? You'll see on the reader board who's in line to get the upgrade based on their last initial. So it's kind of a partial privatization of that name data. And I think it's kind of cool to show them. So they can confirm by going back in the form that yes, indeed, it's stuck. They're going to get an email as well, but if they're really worried that they're not going to have this thing booked, they can go back in the list and take a look at it again. Okay, so then Mel, one more thing I wanted to ask you to show them is the submit logic. Let me just switch back to you again, and because the submit logic is pretty important, and then we're going to talk about how we notify the customer, and then we're going to take your questions. So if you have questions, now's a good time to start putting them in the question area. You can just ask us a question. We're about 5 minutes away from the end, so Mel?
Yep. So submit here. This is for the flow, the Microsoft flow. We need some metadata there so that the and you didn't show the flow emails, by the way. So yep, that's just there on submit, and then we just basically use the QRules command submit to SharePoint list in order to submit to our calendar list with our mapping specified there. It's the appointments mapping, and I'm going to show the mapping right now. So with the latest version of Forms Viewer, we provide this design button that allows you to, and we're improving, continuing to improve this. Then in the SharePoint list mappings tab, I can select to view my mapping. And right here, we see how we're mapping each field in the form into the column in that SharePoint list calendar. So for example, full name, that's why we're seeing the full name in the title. In those appointments, that's coming from the full name in the field in the form, start and date and so on. So it's all just using QRules, submit to SharePoint list for the submit.
That's great. And for those of you who are not familiar with setting up those mappings, once, like Mel said, it's very easy now to go into Forms Viewer and to go to the Design tab and actually create and manage those mappings. You can also create and manage rules. There's a rule editor. Let's go to the rule editor for a second, Mel. Why don't you show them one of the rules you've gotten? This is a cool new feature in 2.4 version of Forms Viewer that we just launched about a week ago. And you can see all of her rules in here on those buttons. Maybe you can show the formatting rules if you can find them.
Okay, I didn't have
names for them.
Formatting, I think it's only showing like action rules, not formatting rules. Is that right?
Yeah, there might be a limitation there right now, but do you have, can you show them the action rules on that? Maybe you have to change the main data source or something.
This one, these are action rules in the buttons, one of the buttons.
Oh, yeah, just click on them, does it expand?
Okay, there you go.
So that's actually setting the time. What's the other one? Saying it, okay, so it's pretty simple. Yeah, so these are the rules you saw in the designer can now be edited in the browser. And we're going to be adding support to edit the data connections and finally edit the layout this year. So for those of you with Forms Viewer, we are eagerly working on finishing out the designer features so that you don't have to worry about the InfoPath designer going poof in the night. We're going to have your back there. In the meantime, you still do need to use the designer to change the layout and change the data connections, but you can, in theory, add rules here and add SharePoint list mappings. So I'm going to just share my screen again, Mel. I'm going to go back. I want to talk, and we're almost at the end. I think we might be going a little bit over. But so that's the integration with SharePoint. So it queries, it combines those lists to show you the data in a nice graphical way. It limits the selection based on that. And then in the end, it submits back to the same list. Now, this is OpenTable's, this is a picture of OpenTable's website. And this is kind of like what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give people this automatic utility so that even if we're not available, let's say they went to our website at 5 a.m. Pacific, when nobody's available, they can still schedule the service call, right, or the support call. And in addition, if we're really busy, we're helping some other customer out, they can schedule an appointment. So that's really good. We're not going to miss any appointments. And if the customers decide they want to change it, they can just go back in there and add a new appointment. We're not going to hassle with trying to allow for editing of previous appointments. If they don't show up, they don't show up. You know, it's probably unlikely that we'll get a lot of people who decide to change their minds later. But if they do, no big deal, right? We just show up for the support call. If they're not there, we just assume that they got busy, or maybe we try to call them and email them. So we've simplified this quite a bit by not allowing editing of previous appointments. And then finally, we're actually looking at confirmations with Flow. And what I want to show is I've got an email here. So when I submitted my form a moment ago, I got an email. Now we're using actually Gmail with our Flow right now, and you can see here this is my request that I made for the original one. It's very simple right now. We really need to improve this, but let me show you where that is specified here. So we've actually created a flow, and let's see if I can find it here. So we have on our 365 site, we've set up Flow, and we have this flow here for the contact us. And Dawn, I want you to maybe talk a little bit about it. I'm just going to show you on my screens just because I know that we're running out of time here. Do you want to, let's see, I need to click on these items to expand them. Do you want to talk to this, Dawn?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So good morning. This is just a pretty simple flow, email notification type of workflow. So when you start to create one, you have other options aside from the SharePoint option here. But you'll see a bunch of icons, and you can choose from other things such as Outlook or and SharePoint. And this is the simplest one when an item is created, but you can also modify this to when an item is created and modified. And for this one, you just have to specify the site address and the name of the list, and then add an action that does send email action. And for this, I promoted a field and mapped the customer email field onto the column, so that's where it gets the recipient from. And then I used a field which concatenates a string of words to show the subject, and for the body, I just added a static response. So it's just pretty simple.
Cool. And you can see that that's the email I got. We would ideally want to extend this to add a link so they can get a link to the go-to meeting for the support call. And that we'll be doing that actually. We're going to go live. And Shane had an interesting question about whether we could use Exchange. because Flow works with Exchange, you can definitely integrate it with Exchange. You just need to set up that Flow action. So this one's from Gmail, so this is a good example of not using the email from 365. And so you can set up with the email from 365 if you got that, or with Exchange or some other email provider. It should work just fine. I mean, Flow's got quite a few different action formats. Even if you don't have the action in Flow as a default action, you can create your own actions. And we're more than happy to help you with Flow. Hillary Stupa has done 2 Microsoft Flow and Power App training classes last year, and we've got those recorded. If you're interested in some training for Flow or for Power Apps or for FormZero, we're going to be doing a FormZero training in the next few weeks, at the end of January. In fact, I need to switch back to my screen because I think we're almost done here. I want to just do a shout out for those of you who have not heard of FormZero. FormZero is our replacement for InfoPath. We've done a lot over the last 4 years to make it a great option for you. It actually is, not only is it your insurance if your InfoPath goes away, but it's actually got a lot of new features like this mobile support that you saw in Mel demo. And it's also got all these QRLS commands built in. It's faster, it's better, and we're continuing to add things to it. We're committed to making it the form platform for the future. We have that free training class coming up at the end of January. If you're interested, just go out to our education site on Qdabra.com here, and you can register for the upcoming class. You need to go to classes, and underneath classes you can see that on January 30th we're going to have that free FormZero training. And then do you have questions? So I know we have that one question from Shane. Thank you, Shane, for asking that. And I'm just going to take a quick look here and see if we have any other questions. Looks like we do not. So we'll give it a 30 seconds or so here. And I just want to thank Mel and Dawn for preparing the demo today. This was kind of as often is the case, it was kind of a quick random idea from me to create this form demo, and they did a great job of quickly dealing with my requests and getting it done and being here for the webinar. And I want to also wish Mel a happy birthday today, even though it's now the next day in Manila. Mel has been with us for many, many years, and you're doing a great job, Mel. Really happy birthday. I hope you get to take some of your Friday off. Take care. And then we got a question from Philip. Thanks, Philip. So question is, maybe this is a beginner question, but I see publicly faced forms. Is that possible with SharePoint Online? Absolutely, and that's a great question. In fact, for those of you who filled out the form, let's just actually go see who filled it out, because we did send this link to you, and so hopefully some of you actually went in and filled it out. Let's take a look at the calendar here, and let's see if we, I need to refresh, I don't know. Got Mel, do you see any new items in here from our webinar attendees?
No, I don't.
I don't either. That's your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Is that the one you entered? I'm looking.
Yeah, I entered
the attendees list, and for someone. So Philip, to your question, FormZero supports anonymous access. So what that means is that when that link that you got in the chat window, you can fill out the form yourself and submit it. You don't need access to our 365 site. So this is another big feature win for those of you using FormZero. You can put these facing forms out there on your 365 site, and you do not need to give your customers access to your 365 site. So it's a huge cost savings. We have several customers using FormZero on-prem to reduce SharePoint licensing costs because they do not need to have SharePoint CALs to use FormZero. So it's a huge win. In fact, a couple of our customers are saving tens of thousands of dollars a year because they don't have to pay for those CALs. So that's a great question, Philip, and hopefully that answered it. And I hope everyone has a great day. It's been a pleasure presenting to you once again. We'll get this up on YouTube. We will get the package out to you later today. Appreciate your quick feedback in the survey. And I hope you're all warm. Take care. Good luck. Be safe.
Bye, everyone. Take care.